one of the advantages of having been a retirement advisor now for over 20 years is that I've helped guide hundreds of families into retirement and maintained a relationship with them while they're retired. And today I want to share with you the top 5 surprises that retirees report during their first year of retirement. And I want to share them with you because if you know what the surprises are, you can prepare for them and you can keep them from becoming a hindrance to having your best first year of retirement. So let's jump in. And the first realization is, you know what? They were under a lot more stress while they were working than what they thought. You know, maybe you've been working 20, 30, 40 years and during that time, you kind of have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Many of us have a mortgage. We're trying to save money for our kids' college education. We're trying to save money for retirement. We're worried that if we lose our jobs, we lose our health care, right? It's a stressful period, but we just adapt. And pretty soon, it's just who we are, and it's just what our life is. And we don't realize how much stress we're under. So it's kind of that frog in boiling water, that pressure that we're feeling is, you know, if you put a frog from cold water into boiling water, the frog's going to jump right out. But if you turn up that heat, if you turn up the heat here, just a little bit over time, the frog never jumps out. And that can be like us. So the first thing is just this realization, like, oh, you know what? I was under a lot of pressure. I didn't realize it. And it feels great to not have that. So that's a good one. The second realization is many, this is not always the case, but probably in 3/4 of the families it is the case. People are spending less money in retirement than what they initially thought. In fact, I'm going to do another video here in the next couple days. There's a report that Blackstone put out, which is a big provider of investment products, investment services in the United States. And what they report is 20 years into retirement, the vast majority of retirees have only spent 20–30% of the money that they had set aside for retirement. And that's consistent with what I've seen, is people end up spending a lot less money than what they planned for. Now, I do want to share, that's not always the case. That's about 3/4 of the time. And if you happen to be in the category where you're spending more money than what you had planned, just like with your physician, when your health changes, I want you to check back in with your physician. Same thing with your financial advisor. If you see yourself spending more, let your financial advisor know, because you may have to tweak some things. I can tell you, when I do a retirement plan, one of the most sensitive aspects to the success of a plan is how much somebody plans on spending in retirement. So if you tell your financial advisor, hey, we think we're going to be spending $5,000 a month, and you end up spending $6,000 a month, you know, if you do that for 12 months or 18 months, it's probably not going to change anything. But if you do that for 20 years, it can dramatically impact things. And I'd rather plan for that while we still have 20 years in front of us to tweak things, rather than have to go through a big change later on. So keep that in mind. Most people are going to spend less. Some people spend more. If you're in the latter category, be sure to let your financial advisor know. Okay, number 3. You know, we spend so much of our mental space, we spend so much of our time and our energy trying to save up for retirement. But once you retire, it becomes very clear to you that your health is much more important to you than your finances. Your finances are important. Having the right amount of money to support your retirement is important. It's a foundation. But you know what's more important than your bank account? That's your health. Once your health is gone, particularly at our age, as we get older, as you approach your 60s, your 70s, and your early 80s, once your health is gone, unfortunately, many times it doesn't come back. So do everything you can to keep your health. You might be active, you might be able to go out and run a 5K, a 10K. I just want to encourage you to keep investing that time in doing those things, because once your health is gone, boy, it can be a lot of work to build back up to being able to run a 5K or a 10K. And related to time, another shock is what the default in retirement is. the default in retirement is not for big adventures. The default in retirement is not for spending your time in a super rewarding way. Unfortunately, your default is kind of like water flowing downhill. It seeks the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance for a retiree, unfortunately, is screen time. Spending time watching television, spending time on the internet, spending time on social media, spending time watching YouTube videos. In fact, the average retiree will spend almost 30 hours a week on screen time. And I don't think any of us, when we thought, okay, I can barely wait to retire, none of us were thinking, I want to spend more screen time. So I want you to have your adventures. I want you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. I've said this before, at 60 years old, unfortunately, most of us have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time in front of us. And not only do I want you to take advantage of that time, but I want you to actually do the things that you've always dreamt about. So unfortunately, the default plan is sitting around watching television. I don't want you to have the default plan. I want you to have an amazing retirement. So plan ahead, invest the time, invest the effort to make sure that you have that plan. Okay, the next one, we talked about time. I also want to talk about a process. A successful retirement follows a process, and unfortunately, it's not, hey, things are great now and every day it gets better, right? It's like a lot of things in life that are worthwhile. We have to invest in it, and sometimes we go through more difficult periods before we get to fully enjoy the fun periods. And for retirement, what that process looks like is 4 phases. The first phase, let me do it this way, let's see, and probably the first phase that you're going to enjoy, that feels like vacation, and that's where you're enjoying, you're decompressing from work, and that feels great. So that's your first phase, and I want you to make that vacation feeling last as long as you can. For most people, that's 3 months to 2 years. And then the next 2 phases are things that you can prepare for before you retire. And that's kind of the valley that you're going to go through. And the valley is kind of a feeling of loss, a little bit of mourning from your previous life, right? You've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. And so it's just natural to have some mourning for that period. So there's that loss, the loss of maybe your work friends, the loss of routine, the loss of power. Some of us had power at work. So it's kind of mourning for that. The third phase, so let's say we went 4, we talked about vacation, we talked about the loss. Now let's talk about this third phase. And this third phase is what I call trial and error, where we're trying different things out and seeing what our next purpose is going to be. And some of us are going to get lucky. The very next thing that we try, maybe it's working at our church if we're into church, and being more active in church, being involved in choir, or maybe it's helping out with youth sports at the high school, or whatever that next purpose is, whatever you think would be fun. Maybe you've got a hobby business that you want to sink your teeth into. So that's the trial and error. And then the final phase is the good phase, phase 4. So phase 1, vacation. Phase 4 is fun. The 2 in between take work, unfortunately. But the final phase is your new life. And that's where most people look back and say, thank goodness I retired when I did. I wish I had retired a couple years early, because now that I'm through the transition, I find out, you know what, I really love it. And I want to close with a really important thing that's going to change, another surprise for people, and that is risk is going to feel different for you. Your portfolio risk is going to feel different for you once you're retired. And I'd rather you know this when you're setting up your asset allocation for retirement. Let's say you're 60 years old and you're retiring. You still have a long time horizon. Hopefully you've got at least 20 years, hopefully you've got 30 years. That's a long period of time, and you could make an argument for you can still take a lot of risk in your portfolio. But remember, you can only take as much risk as you personally can handle without the mental stress of the ups and downs of the stock market causing you to blow out of your portfolio. I never ever want you to be a forced seller into a down market. So let's say the stock market's down 20, 30, 40%. That drop is going to feel a lot riskier. That drop is going to feel a lot scarier than it did when you were working. So I want you to know that ahead of time. So I want you to throttle back on that risk early on. You can increase the risk later. It doesn't have to be your asset allocation forever. But for a while, until you have a sense of how is a 20% drop in the stock market, how is that going to feel to me? Until you have a sense for that, I'd rather you have less risk in your portfolio than more. This is not financial advice. I don't know your situation, but I do want to encourage you to work with a financial advisor that has a fiduciary obligation to you 100% of the time. And let me tell you, somebody that doesn't have a fiduciary obligation to you, they can take advantage of the fact that you feel stressed when the market's going down. And they can cause you to trade, because some of those folks make money the more that you trade. So you want to make sure that whoever your financial advisor is, that they're bringing their smarts, they're bringing their experience solely for one person's benefit, and that person's benefit is yours. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you're not retired yet, I want you to think about watching this video here, which is 5 reasons to think about retiring as soon as you can. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you in this video here. Bye-bye.